I want to start today by telling you a story. And it's all about a friend I grew up with, and for the sake of today's story, we're going to call him James. And me and James went to school together, started year 7, placed in the same form, and in pretty much every single class together from then until 6th form. And it was until I went to college that we stopped seeing each other every day, but we still remain friends. We would still meet up and hang out. And actually, when it came to university, he got a little bit annoyed with me because I started playing FIFA rather than Pro Evo, which we'd been playing as a kid. And he considered me a bit of a sellout on that, but it didn't stop us from being friends. A few years later, I began teaching, and he actually started teaching in the same school I did, which was amazing. It was also a little bit strange that we started teaching and we were working in a school and we'd gone to school together. And it was kind of funny. And in the end, I got this new job. And we still spoke while I was in this new job, but not as much. And as I went back and as I got a new job in the school, he seemed so excited for me, but it was strange. He was a little distant as I told him, and I didn't really understand why. And he said he just wouldn't be at the job as I started there. And I was confused, so I asked him to go out for food, and I took him to a restaurant. And as we sat down and we started to eat, he started to tell me about the struggles he'd been having and his girlfriend too, and how he'd no longer be working in the school. You see, his girlfriend had been suffering with anxiety, depression and sickness, and he too hadn't been well, and he was finding that he had anxiety as well. And he said some off-the-cuff comments in his job, and so he decided to leave. And there was so much shame in this moment as he spoke about it for the very first time. And as we chatted things through, it didn't solve everything, but it gave him an opportunity to heal. You see, we often assume we know everything about someone because we say hi to them in the hallway in school, or because we follow them on Instagram. You see, because me and my friend James, we'd kept in touch via texting and messaging, we thought we knew what was going on in each other's lives. But really, we only knew what was happening on the surface. We actually didn't know what was really happening at all. See, everyone has a backstory we may never know about. We too have a backstory. And each one of us has a story, whether it's the family dynamics or our friends or what's happened to us or the hurts that we carry. And no one knows everything about us, but we certainly do. People may not understand why we get upset or cry or even lash out at times, but we might have an idea why we do those things. The memories we have, the things that have happened in our day. We might even hear ourselves say things like, if only they knew what kind of morning I've had. Or, they just don't know what I'm going through at home. Or, I just couldn't sleep at all last night. I was just so worried. Or, I'm just so angry all of the time, and I don't even know why I'm angry. And as we might have some of those feelings and thoughts, experiences, other people have similar feelings too. So when our friend is snappy and we get annoyed and we don't understand why they did what they did, we need to remember we can all have those days. And it's important to remember to show people grace, to acknowledge we don't know and don't understand what someone is going through, but showing the love and patience, even when they are angry and frustrated, as we can't assume their whole backstory. As we look in the New Testament, we see Jesus time and time again taking time to understand the people he met. He shared meals, had conversations with people that no one else would, and Jesus looked for the opportunity to get personal with people. We've been thinking about this story of Zacchaeus and the interaction he had with Jesus. Zacchaeus was not exempt to how Jesus impacted the lives of the people that he interacted with. So let's check out, and as we do, think about what Jesus does to try to know Zacchaeus. When Jesus came back, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down, I must be a guest in your home today. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. Jesus invited himself over to Zacchaeus' house and took the time to enter into Zacchaeus' everyday context. Jesus knew it might have been considered risky, but he also knew there was more to Zacchaeus than what everyone else in town thought they understood about him. It says, but the people were displeased. He had gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. The people weren't impressed and they actually voiced their disagreement. The thing about Jesus is he didn't conform to the world's standards. He didn't bow down to peer pressure. He was looking to connect with Zacchaeus on a greater level. Jesus didn't care about what other people thought. He wanted to step into a place Zacchaeus would feel most comfortable. And Zacchaeus would feel most comfortable in his home. We are probably a lot like Zacchaeus with that too. Like our space, our home is most likely where we feel like we can let our guard down to. It was Zacchaeus' house that Jesus took the time to get to know him, learn about his circumstances, his situations. And by doing this, Jesus was able to get to know Zacchaeus more personally. Zacchaeus had a backstory, one Jesus knew about, and Jesus entered into Zacchaeus' story to know him personally. And we too have a backstory we don't let everyone into. And it was when Jesus entered into Zacchaeus' home and was able to connect with him in a way that the crowd was unwilling to. Jesus showed that he wanted to get to know Zacchaeus in a bigger way to really understand him, and did that by getting to know him personally. When it comes to understanding our own story and the stories of others, we can take a look at the life of Jesus as he sought out ways to get personal people and to understand their stories. Let's look in this verse in Philippians. It says, you must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. You see, Jesus stepped into our world. He walked the earth so he could step into our story to experience what we experience. Jesus made God personal to us. And as we read the story of Jesus, we must see how it's related and connected with our story. We may not experience everything the same, but we can't forget that he was a human too. He was once a baby. He had siblings. He was forgotten and left behind by his parents. He experienced the loss of one of his friends who died. He was hurt by a friend. And he knows what you're going through. And he knows the hurts, the worries, the concerns that you have. And he knows the doubts you have in him. And the things that you keep you up at night. He knows your hopes and your dreams and your prayers. But he doesn't simply know them. He wants to step into your home, the place that is personal to you, and wants to know that he doesn't just know your story, but he understands it too. Here's the truth. It's personal because Jesus understands your story. Since he can understand our story, we can take steps in our lives to connect with him, connect with ourselves, and connect with others. I know this isn't easy. It's really hard to let people into our lives to know our story and our background. We can begin to think about how people might respond, and if people know about certain parts of our stories and secrets we hold on to. Sometimes we can feel our story is too big to handle, and how can anyone else except us understand it? And the incredible thing is, when we boldly share our story, we give permission to those around us to do the same. So how can we start? For some of you, the first step is to wrestle with the idea and acknowledge that Jesus knows you. all the pieces that make up your story and wants to step into it with you. That he can understand your story, your situation, your emotions, and he loves you. And if we think Zacchaeus, and Jesus knew all the rumors, he knew Zacchaeus was an outcast and how he treated people and how he was hated for the job he did. Jesus knew it all, but Jesus also knew there was more to the story and stepped in to Zacchaeus' home, his life. And Jesus wants to do the same for you. Jesus wants to step into your life. He wants to get to know you personally. For others, your next step is to let someone into your story. Like my friend James at the beginning, he was able to experience healing and freedom as he shared his story with a friend. Maybe there's part of your story that you've kept secret and hidden from others that you could share with a friend or a trusted adult, maybe from church or at home. But by sharing, you are given permission to others to get to know you more personally. And they too have the freedom to share their backstory with you. Then for others, it is time for you to really understand the story of other people. We need to create safe spaces in our lives to get to know others. How often are we more likely to be like the crowd than like Jesus? We share the rumors or past judgments. It could be because of their reputation or how they dress, their interests, or because they're from a different culture. Let's take the steps to get to know people personally, to understand their story, to listen and to actually hear from them, to hear who they are. Our lives can change when we allow people to see who we are and to understand our stories, and even more when we can begin to understand the stories of others.